topic of conversation is one I've been living my whole adult life, so I understand it, and I'm honored to be here.
Okay. All right. So we have an audience here of about 6 people, and I'm going to do my own little personal recording at the same time, just in case. One of the things I wanted to say first is I'm going to read a small piece from one of the articles that I wrote. And I wrote this for a magazine called For Real Magazine. And I used to post my stuff on the internet, and I got a lot of feedback, emails, and people. Thank you.
Some of us are traveling. We're going to do it. Awesome. We can pray it awesome.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. As I was saying, the piece that I'm going to read from, I'm going to just read like a paragraph from it and make it real short, just to try to get my point across. All right. And I'm going to draw from an experience that I had. One of my uncles, a guy by the name of Frankie Halfacre, not Frankie Crocker.
Frankie what?
Frankie Halfacre.
Okay.
He was a big radio guy in the Ohio area at 5 radio stations. And the interesting thing about him is he always played black music. He was the first African American to play Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud in the whole country. He's the first one to play it. He was one of the first people to recognize that you had to have a media presence. So he bought a radio station, bought 2 radio stations, and he also purchased his own television show called Get It Together. Mm-hmm. There's always a message hidden in the music or in his concepts. Mm-hmm. And he was very cognizant of this, and his name was Frankie Halfacre. And how I got involved with his radio stations is he partnered with a lawyer, in my hometown, and the lawyer had relationships with different banking companies and finance companies. So they went and they borrowed money, because if you understand black radio, I'm sure most of y'all do, black radio may have a power base, or depending on the shoehorn, is one of the things I want George to address. They may have a shoehorn or a circular trajectory, but the power base for black radio has always been a little less than most of the pop stations, if I'm not mistaken, right? So what they would do is they would sell advertisement time, so the advertisement value was always less than the pop radio value, because you reach less people in your power base. And I noticed when I used to go there that he was always seemed like he was struggling to pay bills. And I said, well, what are you guys doing? How can I help? Not knowing nothing really about radio at the time until I hung around him. I used to ask, how can I help? He said, well, I need somebody to go down here and shake these people down and talk to them about how we can get this radio station to be like the power stations, the big power stations. So they went. I left. I didn't get involved. I came back about 2 years later and kept asking him, how's he doing? He said he borrowed $13 million from an investor. And those of us who are musicians, we just look at radio, well, I want to get my stuff on the radio, but we don't know the struggle that they go through when it comes to paying the bills, paying the employees, and being able to meet that monthly net. So these people who would loan money to black radio stations, it wasn't just one. They would intentionally pick all the black radio stations that had some kind of financial issues. Why would they do that? They did that because to invest money with them, they knew if they invested, they had the antennas, they had the properties for all the equipment, and they put liens on these properties if you miss payments. That's how black radio basically got taken over by many of the so-called Jewish predatory lenders We always needed money, and so they gave us the money. But after 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even 10 years, in some cases like the Percy Settons and the WBLS in New York, they went through maybe 15, 20 years and then kind of almost folded. They had to sell much of their stock to be able to stay alive. And what I noticed was songwriters and musicians started having a harder time to get the music on the radio because the record companies now are pushing the big names and the big payola schemes were happening. That's why you have people like P. Diddy's, and the rap game was just off the hook because they were just under the table throwing dollars like crazy. So I don't want to go into the detail of what I actually wrote for my introduction. I'm just going to, for sake of time, we're going to just say there's some questions we can ask these gentlemen, and you can ask me. My experience is obviously very extensive in different areas, dealing with mostly production and the pitfalls of what happens when you're dealing with these A&R peoples and these executives. But I'd like to, since everybody here is a musician or has some kind of art, just come on up and just ask some questions. These are the people that answer. This is a radio guy. And George, I want to say to you, what would you, if you had to give advice to people who were musicians that got this kind of background like these brothers here, and Brother Latif has been around for 40 years. 40 years. He's also a Yoda. He's sitting like a Yoda now back then. He's like a Yoda, and you got somebody like him. What would you say now with the changing dynamics that have happened in the industry? What would you say would be the key for radio now?
Okay, well, the key
As
for
opposed
radio,
to 20 years ago when you first,
well, I've seen a great deal of change in the industry. You've got a lot more radio outlets now. Radio is not just terrestrial, it's satellite. Of course, there was a time where it was only AM, which is, of course, amplitude modulation. Then, of course, you got FM, which is frequency modulation. And now you've got XM, satellite radio, that comes down, which has made radio as an industry, as a formatted program, shareable across the world. It's actually falls more under the umbrella of digital media now, because in music, in radio, and in so many different things, if you're only bringing music, then it's not enough anymore, because there's always a component. One of my jobs as a personality now is not just to run a show. I have to manage social media accounts, which is the digital portion of what we do. And they're on us like that, especially those of us who have been in radio for a while and didn't come from that and saw the advent of social media since we've been in radio. They stay on us because it's like, no, you have to post. Like, our thing is post 2 things a show, at the very least. I do some consulting with artists, with musicians, and I constantly tell them, radio used to be the first place you go after you recorded a record. Radio is now the last stop. You don't record a record and then come straight to radio talking about we're trying to put this record out. No, you've got to get your streams up. You've got to get your visuals. And
can you elaborate on the streams part?
Okay, so the streams now, because everything is app-based and on the internet. Here is my station's app. We have an actual app, K92.7, and the radio is still playing. There I am on the app. We have a website as well that you can listen live on. So because radio, the programming of it is in so many different places, you got convergent media devices phones, iPads, computers. So it's available in so many different places. The fact that we live in a what we call a microwave society now, and people have so many choices, it's difficult to focus their attention on just going to the radio. So it's necessary to have a presence in a number of areas. So if you can just create an app where people can say, oh, I'm just going to download the app and listen to it, or if we're there at work, they can't have a radio, but they've got computers, oh, well, we're going to go to www such and play a stream live at work on the computer. You know, we get a lot of engagement from people at work. That's like probably the biggest engagement. You know, we gear a lot of promotions
Towards that market.
towards people that are at work. Listen while you work. Call in. You know, you can win lunch for your office.
I want to
if
ask
you
you something
engage.
on that
Yes.
on that point. If you see, this is a community here
Mhm.
where we're doing this workshop. There's a lot of talent in the community. For years, I've struggled with trying to find ways to help people that it's like a self-contained, if you will, kind of like community-based. But there are a lot of people who have tremendous talent who always are outside of that circle. They go out into the world and do well. But there's a community base in here, in this community, that has a tremendous amount of talent. That talent doesn't seem to get a fair, if you will, fair look or fair shake or fair opportunity to meet the whole world, the real world of radio. What would you say to somebody who has clean lyrics, culturally based, moral content? What would you say to somebody that? Because I know the kind of stuff you play, a lot of R&B. What would you say to a person like that?
Think of it like this. One of Kanye West's biggest records was Jesus Walks. A very morally based record. I think it's more so, is it the objective of that community to get them there? Because now having your stuff on radio or in particular places, it's a numbers game. What kind of support do these people have? You know, if an artist comes out of a particular community and that whole community is supporting them, and that whole community is speaking up to the radio stations and saying, hey, why are you not playing this?
So you're saying that there should be a core of interaction
Absolutely.
with the entire community to support the media, the content.
That's what support is. It's got to be that interaction. Just sitting back and listening to it doesn't work anymore. You know, when we go into what's called a book, a ratings book, there's a cross-section of the community that actual paper diaries are sent out to. And these people fill these diaries out and they return it. And that's how we get our quote-unquote ratings of our market share. And that's how we're able to set our prices for advertising and all of that. One of those diaries represents, in the market that I'm in, 700 people. One diary. And it's only going to one household. So
Wow.
those people, that's the weight of what people, because they're not going to survey everybody. But one diary represents 700 people in our market. So the power of a community saying, this is our guy, y'all need to support him. Guess what? That community is a community of business owners.
You just said something key.
Uh-huh.
Let me jump in.
No, go ahead.
You said the community has to say, this is our guy.
Yeah.
And this is who we support. And then how come you're not playing this on that your station? You're saying the community has to say that.
The community
so it
has
has to be
to
a
ask for
unified
it.
understanding. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Am I clear? Okay.
That's what I mean when I first stated that that has to be the aim of the community. The community can get done whatever they want to. You know, it's just that us at the radio station, if they're not saying we want to hear it, we're not playing it. If it's not, especially if it's something that's not charting, because We look at the charts to see what's hot. And we play what's on those charts. And we could see something that was at 54 last week,
Go
and
to
it jumps
25.
up to 25. We're like, okay, we're putting that
Put-
in,
yeah.
you know. And so I mean,
Because it
there's
routes
a real
back
science
It
to it.
routes back to market share.
Right.
Absolutely,
Business for you.
absolutely.
So how does that translate in in the sense of, and I'm sure we're going to transition at some point to see, because songwriting is also the other link that drives this whole media situation, right? But how does that translate into a dollar value in the sense of
A dollar value for who? For the artist or for the radio?
for the radio station?
For the
first?
radio station, if people are see, there's something called TSL, time spent listening, and we get these readouts every. So your ratings are only taken in 3-month intervals in the fall, a 3-month period in the fall, and a 3-month interval in the spring. And they look for TSL, time spent listening, how many people were listening. But that TSL is big because the average person only listens to the radio for, our TSL was, it took a bump. We went up, I think, 30 minutes at a time.
Wow.
The average person's only listening to the radio about 30 minutes at a time because they're listening in transition.
Right.
You know, so in that TSL, that's why promos, breaks, everything are structured a particular way because you got to catch people where they are. You want them listening to your station because what they don't tell you is that they're changing the station. As soon as their song goes off, they hear a commercial, they go to the next station. It's just habit. Everybody does it.
Right.
So it's very important that, you know, TSL, if you can prove, and these are the metrics, the tangible, quantifiable numbers. If those numbers say you have the most TSL and the most listeners, then I can charge a larger dollar amount for advertising. Advertising is where the money comes in.
It's highly competitive.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay.
We're in a war right now with our
Oh, yeah.
competition.
So,
Before
no, we're gonna have a question and answer after. What I wanna do is now.
No, not a question.
But-
You were talking about radio. I wanted to take it back.
Can you hold it till?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do is now you're a songwriter, a very successful one, I might say. I mean,
I got some songs.
many.
Me too.
There's always one, right?
Please let me what?
So how when you're writing, you've had what approximately how many? I don't know if you know how many top 10 or number 1 records in your writing career.
I don't know how many I've had. It's been quite a few though. I've been doing it for 20 plus years at a you know a really high, successful, blessed level. So I couldn't say how many I've had, but I've worked with a wide spectrum of like R&B artists to pop artists to like all kinds. So I've been doing it at a high level for a long time.
Well, let me see if I can push you a little further. How about how many would you say is more than 50?
Not more than 50, not top 10.
Okay.
I've had more than 50 placements, but not.
Okay.
I maybe had 15 or 20 top 10 records throughout my
Right.
career.
Right. Okay, so alhamdulillah for that. So in looking at that as an actual fact, when you're writing songs, what is your thinking as it relates to media and the type of artist, or just what type of artist do you feel has a propensity to achieve what you're giving them in your songwriting? And I like I said, I respect you as one of the
That's a good question.
top number 1 writers in really in the world.
Thank you.
And but that would be my question as to how do you come to that conclusion? What do you think about when you do that?
Factor in a lot of different things like how old the artist is. One, because you know at a certain age, certain things aren't going to be realistic for them to talk about. Where they're from, what's going on in their life right now. Like that's something I found that helped a lot. If you could get an artist if you could pinpoint what they're passionate about and almost make it seem like we're writing the record together, they champion the record. They go back to their management or to the record label and they champion the record like this is the one. So the thing I would do a lot is I would want to spend the day. If the session started at 12, I would get with the artist a couple hours earlier and just spend time with them and just kind of try to get in their head. And that worked for me really well. And then over the years, I would start to reconsider what records would work for what artists after the birth of the internet. And I started to realize that adult artists don't really fare well on the internet. That's in his realm more, the radio. But there's so many different apps and places where kids go to hear music. A lot of the artists that they're falling in love with and just really getting behind, they're finding on the internet. So the older I get, I'm a little more removed. I got kids that live in that world, but I'm just not in that world. That's conversation. So I listen a lot. That's the biggest key, I think, is listening. I listen to conversations. I'm always listening for any conversation I'm in. I'm listening for somebody to say something. It'll be a word or a sentence or something. I'll write it down and it'll be a song.
That's right.
Like you made a statement while we were talking earlier. What was it? Chill something. We made a statement. We can't repeat.
Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
So now, I guess what my the thing that to me is, I think, astonishing is the approach and technique. Like you say, you're always listening to. That's something I do also.
Mm-hmm.
You may say a phrase and you don't even know I'm paying attention. I'm gonna take that and I'll make a little note, or I'll pull out my computer and say my phone and hit record and go da da da, and then maybe the next day or the next morning I got an idea. But one of the techniques that we use, and I don't even know if some of y'all probably know this because I may have shared it with a few friends here. One of the techniques that we use is the reason why I think my family have been successful. You just did, by the way, the new single for Kool Gang,
nice.
which is unbelievable.
So we can.
I'm thankful that I'm playing on it, making this one. But one of the techniques we used when we ran out of ideas, and this is something that I was able to teach to people like Teddy Riley when he was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I think that it may have helped him surpass a lot of people who were adults doing it because he learned it as a child.
Mm-hmm.
It was this concept called the rhythm of the word.
Absolutely.
And rhythm of the word is, I'm saying it publicly for maybe the first time in front of friends and family, is you say a phrase and you take the rhythm of that phrase and you create the beat around that rhythm, and then you have the music. So anybody can stand up and say a phrase. You say a phrase, anything. Anything.
What guides the heart?
Okay, see that? See how she said that? Da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
a
what-
melody in it.
So what?
Melody. I agree,
Alhamdulillah.
because I figured that out
Right.
maybe before you did. No, just kidding.
You probably
I
did.
figured out when you listen to poetry,
Right.
all the poetry, all the spoken words that you hear, there's a melody already in what they're
Right.
saying. And if you, like you said, you listen,
So I
you're
wouldn't-
not listening.
I don't-
You don't know how to listen for the up and down that they're doing, or they just go straight. Well, that's a melody.
Yes. So what I wanted to expound upon about that, that was one of the secrets to 90% of Kool Gang's music. You know, it's like she said, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, over and over and over. As ridiculous as it may
What guides the
seem,
heart?
when you put the beat to it, it becomes
Love.
a rhythm of the word. You never fail.
What's the rhythm?
You take that.
Once you got that,
Everything
hey,
you do,
this is a right. George is a songwriter also. That's why he's making notes. So, but it doesn't matter what the phrase is. It doesn't matter how you express it, because the way you express it is always going to have that rhythm,
Yeah.
or at least has that rhythm that time you said it. And once you get it, you capture it. It's like taking a photo print of it. Click. Oh, ba-ba-da-da. Ba-ba-da-da.
Mhm.
Ba-ba-da-da.
Oh, wow.
Ba-da-da-da. For you
Yeah.
know, you got a groove.
What's in the heart?
And that's what it was.
What's in the heart?
So now a lot of the young kids, what you're hearing on a lot of the music now, is you just hear that rhythm of the word. It's so simple. It almost has nothing else to it. It's just that little beat
Yeah.
and that little rhythm of that phrase, and that's the whole record. You don't have the whole orchestrated stuff that's important. We're going to do answer question in a few minutes. So I want to say to both of you, I know you're a songwriter also. So as a radio person, songwriter, and a personality, and a person, but you just wrote a script for a movie.
Yeah.
All right, and you're getting ready to do another one, right? I'm
Yeah.
letting it out,
I got a few of them actually we're working on.
right? So he's that kind of guy,
Alhamdulillah.
and I just let the cat out the bag. Balewa just did the new single. Hopefully, I'm sure it's a new single. They're talking about it like that for Cooling again. I know that was a big thing for you, the family. Everybody's excited about it.
Mhm.
I'm excited about it. Got Keith Murray on there.
Oh, wow.
I got who else is?
I'm supposed to put Pepper's supposed to be on
Yeah,
there.
so you got about 6 people, big artists that are participating with it to make it a world song. Maybe after we're done with this, I'll let y'all hear it because I don't want to get it on tape. That I leaked it. I don't want to do that. But I'll let you guys hear a little bit of it. And if you will, is anything you guys get take a minute? Anything you want to tell folks here that you want to have on tape? That you want part of the historical documentation of this whole workshop that you want?
I would like to answer. I'm better at speaking when I'm answering questions. So if there's anything going through your mind is that that I can answer about song structure, anything song related, I'll do better answering questions. Yes, sir.
Could we put your name up there and an email address or WRFG or?
I don't even know what that last thing is you just said. But
Well, you can get that after we finish. You get it one on one.
We're not gonna get it.
You can get it one. You get it.
You're gonna misspell it, I know.
Go ahead, bro.
My question is, why,
Say your name, Brother Wally.
why isn't the music lasting today?
Because the process that's going into making it, it's like food. It's like a Big Mac. Not to say it's not good. It's just that it's not being created to last. It's created to gain. And let me just preface it by saying this: records are making more money now than they've ever made before. The creators of the music are getting paid faster. So it's not, back in the day it was long royalties that would last, 10, 15 years. I've done some records and I'm still getting royalties. The records that are coming out now, they're being made quickly because they got to service them quickly. Because the listeners, you got their attention in a short window. So, and you got to hit them and you're never owning anything. You're subscribing to music now. So with that concept has affected the way people are creating music. You going in, you got artists that'll go in tonight and service the song to all of the formats Monday. So that's showing up in the longevity of the records.
Gotcha.
But it has not affected the earning of the record. They're making more money now than ever.
What do you mean you're never owning anything? You're subscribing.
People aren't buying.
People aren't really
records, just
buying
subscribing
records
services.
like that. They're just streaming.
Okay.
So you like back in the day, you would buy songs in the key of life.
Right.
I bought that album myself easily 10 times. But now when I want to hear whichever record I want to hear, I'll just and listen real quick. I don't need to go buy the album. I can always. So you're a subscription based listener always now because there's so many places you can go. You can just access it right away.
So they're not getting paid when,
They are getting paid.
but it all depends on if they subscribe a certain amount.
So how are they getting paid?
Yeah, how are they getting paid when it's-
All of these services now are now being. This is recent too that they all of the laws have been passed to where the streaming is all being calculated. The penny rate on some
Cost
of it,
per metrics and
it
those types.
fluctuates. But anytime the owner of, like you said earlier, like your property, the owner of a record If it's a Stevie Wonder record or a Motown record or whatever the record is, when you play it, it's being calculated as a stream. Now that rate is very small, but just think like anybody in the world, when if that record comes across their mind and you want to hear it, where 10, 15 years ago you couldn't do that. You had to go and buy it one time,
Okay.
own it, play it in your car. That's all. That's the owner of the song is not being paid for when you play your CD in the car. But now when you pick up YouTube and go play,
Right.
that's streaming.
If this is, if it's copyrighted.
Right.
If exactly. Yes, sir.
My question is two parts.
Say a name too.
My name is Ahmed Solomon.
Sound like a
The conscious music, do you believe the conscious music is on the way back? I think it has peaks and valleys with different genres.
Let me just repeat his question so it's heard clear. You believe that conscious music
It's on the way back.
is on the way back? Conscious music.
What they go?
Yeah.
Morally conscious.
Yes. Morally conscious music. I didn't know it ever went anywhere. It's just who's listening. You know, I made a statement earlier when we were in another room, just talking about how music is created. It's created in a microwave to please and fill a more immediate need. So what you see in the modern lexicon of music is stuff that reflects culture more immediately. And if you look at the culture, unfortunately, black people, we have been marginalized. We have, we unfortunately hate ourselves, so we see the disrespect of ourselves. We see the disrespect of our women. We see the lack of unity. Whatever our reality is, it comes out in the art form. The art imitates art imitates life.
The environment, yes.
And so I think that
So to the
I'm one of those-
so the morality
yeah.
aspect of it.
the morality of it, and I think that it coming back and being popular, it may, but it depends on if there are people willing to make it, for one, because that's a big thing. Because I know a lot of people that make records to make money, not to make an impact.
That kind of goes back to your point earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't even know maybe
About
he
the
wasn't
community
he wasn't
wanting
in the room. He
Yeah.
just came in. So but you'll probably see that we talked about something like that before you came back into the workshop.
But that's what Nelly said.
So-
Nelly said we could put girls in school dresses and glasses, but the record company ain't gonna buy that.
But see, now let me say that to that. Record company don't have to buy it. Not anymore.
Yeah.
They had to change. Like record companies, it messed up radio for a while. Because when
You
the
know where
internet
to get it from.
became available to everybody and streaming services became available to everybody, record companies had to get rid of A&R departments. They were wasting money. And if you're smart about it, if you're willing to do the work, you don't need a situation, quote unquote. Because when you get these national distribution deals, they're paying you to distribute it, but they're paying you pennies on the dollar, which is why the money looks big, because they're distributing it on a huge platform that's all over the place.
Pennies.
But if you put in the work to take over your state, your city, your state, your region, you'll make more money just doing it in 3 states and doing it yourself than you will signing with a major who's going to participate in every aspect of your money around the world.
Well, that's what I spoke to when I said I did the numbers with the record musicians.
So what I want
And our community supported me and my music, and I beat all of them hands down. Because I was making $15 a record, and they were making 25 cents.
Yeah,
That's how I beat them.
yeah.
that's big. I saw a deal 2008. I was working with a producer who he won a Grammy for Nelly and Kelly Rowland. We sampled that Patti LaBelle, and we were reading Billboard and stuff. Fat Joe came out one week and Shawty Lo came out one week. Fat Joe was on Atlantic, I think it was, and he sold 186,000 copies in the first week. Shawty Lo came out, sold 110,000 that week. Shawty Lo won big because he was in a deal with, I think, Asylum of Koch, where it was like a 7-3,
70-30 split.
yeah, a 70-30 split. He got $7 per album that sold, where Fat Joe was only getting 25 cents, maybe.
Per dollar, on the dollar. Fat Joe was getting 25 cents on the wholesale dollar.
On the wholesale,
Which is actually 12.5 points.
Exactly.
So when you heard that point,
When you go on tour, that's when he gonna make his money.
Yes.
Gigs, that's right.
He gonna make more money when he go on tour.
Most artists make
Well, that's
most
when
of their money on tour.
and that may be one of the reasons why many artists get stupid when they get on tour, because they know I ain't getting my money from this, so I'm getting as much as I can. I want $100,000. You got artists right now that we both are aware of that. They'll ask for $100,000 in a heartbeat, and the show is really not worth more than 25,000 at most. But they'll ask for the $100,000 if that record is anywhere close to the top 10. If you want to see them live.
That's why it baffled me when MC Hammer had an 8 million seller, and he said the check cashing place, having somebody send him some money.
Well, there was other issues, dynamics.
I'm saying to you, I'm saying that what happens is the same thing we're talking about.
Well,
you're not,
to be quite honest, on
let
that
me
point,
finish. You got an 8 million seller, but you're not making that much money.
that make $8 million.
Right.
It's not even $1 a
And
record.
then I got like you're saying,
Not even $1 a record.
Yeah, you making $7 where the guy's making 25 cents.
Well,
The person that broke it down to me, the person that I saw literally was in front of me breaking it down, that made me to understand it was Prince.
Prince. That's
I
right.
was in college. I was 2001. Prince came and spoke to us at the Black College Radio Conference, and the way that he broke it down, he showed us how Mariah Carey, who had just signed a deal for $26 million, which is unheard of,
Right.
and she was still getting screwed. He said, "I'll never forget Prince saying, he said they almost got it right." I was like, "Wow."
So lastly, we're going to spend another 3 minutes talking about. Yeah. Okay, you want a question? Go ahead.
So, I'm in marketing. So, you think it would be
That's what I was
to my advantage to market a musician from the single coming out as opposed to his whole? Because you stream
That's
it.
exactly what I was about to
Oh
take
my
us.
gosh.
I was actually about to take us to the marketing section of that. But you go ahead. Yes, go
I
ahead.
definitely
Yeah,
start
absolutely.
Like a
with
test pilot to get
yeah,
out there.
definitely start with a single.
You want to
It's
go
not
with
even a test pilot. Like,
a single is nothing more than a business card, basically.
Yeah.
You're handing out business cards everywhere you go. If you got single, you basically, even if you charge $1 a single or $2 a single,
Just get
you're basically asking somebody to give you $1 so they can take your business card.
okay.
Because you want them to
It's
promote
introduction.
and introduce you and tell other people about what you do. So if you say, "Oh, I'm artist A, and I have a new record called
So it's just promotion.
Let's Jump in the Sky," whatever. That's my new record. That single is nothing more than a business card, because what's going to happen if you give it to a guy like him? He's going to say, "Well, who heard the record? Who knows about the record?" Now, if you give out enough business cards to enough people in a certain designated, if we say region, would that be a region?
absolutely.
That region
Or
is
demo.
going to be familiar with your business card or your record or your song. So what's going to happen when you go to him finally and you say, "I gave my business card out to 20,000 people in the Atlanta area." And you go to him and you say, "Look, check out my business card." He's going to be like, "Well, who heard it? Who knows about it?" And he's going to be like, "Yo, you heard about this new record called Jump in the Sky?" And somebody will be like, "Oh yeah, I heard about such and such. Yo, that they playing that over on the west side." And it's a woo woo. That's what's in the Jeeps. And
So what
That's how
that
you-
does is allow us to connect with our audience better
Right.
too. Because if it's something that our audience is listening to that we haven't played, and you said or they're playing it over on the west side. I'll get on the radio, play it. Shouts out to my guys over there on the west side, dropping this jump in the sky. This is for you. I just connected with my audience. Now, what that does is anything that I'm putting out, I'm a trusted voice. I legitimize the music that they hear. A lot of times, records, when you play them, the radio tells you that's hot.
That's right.
Most people don't go looking for new music. I look for new music. I got so much music that's not played that I love to listen to that's sonically pleasing. But we are the gatekeepers, the taste makers. We tell you what's hot.
Program.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
Program.
So it's now a quarter to.
Can I make a statement?
Yes, ma'am.
You just said, and I'm a good example of when you're not promoting yourself or a single. Because it was regional, that's what I did, and I wasn't consistent. I promoted a song in Oakland that I wrote. And Imam Muhammad called me. And he said, he left me a message, he said, this is what we're looking for, right? But I only promoted it regionally, and I didn't keep on doing it. It just died. And you have to really pass that card out, and you got to move around.
That's right.
So I got a song that nobody knows about, but he may not, maybe Waleed and a few people here, because I wasn't passing.
You got to pass it out.
Nobody really knows me here.
There's a trick that, and I tell a lot of young producers this. They come to me. I got a lot of people come to me for help, advice, direction, consultation, and I'm constantly, he knows it. I'm always on the phone, or people come to my house in my studio, and they'll because they hear that I know something, or they think I know something, and for the most part, I know a little something. I don't know everything. That's why I rely on people like this as well. But a lot of times, artists will come to me, and they'll ask me about how do I become a record label, independent record label, or how do I control my masters, or they get into really areas, really, really crazy areas. And I always try to tell people, you just reverse, step back a little bit. Understand what you have first. Master the song.
Yeah.
Master the song first. You got a good song, pretty much people will listen.
But you got to know you got one.
People, well, sometimes you may not know. You got a good song. People will pretty much respond to a great song every single time, no matter what. They're going to respond to it. The production might not be that great, but if you got a great song, you can pretty much get people to say, "Yeah, I like this song. I like what you're singing about." And I see a lot of these rappers, the young kids. Now they just seem like they just all want to be moguls. Every one of them, I want to be a mogul. Yeah, I want to be mogul. So their motivation, their motivation is to be like T.I. and Usher. They want to be moguls like that. And I think that you got to stay focused with the basic, simplistic reason what we do this for. We do it for the love of music, make a hit song, make a hit record, and then everything else happens. If you hand out enough business cards. So on that note,
I think another thing we have to do, we have to really realize that we're not controllers over distribution and things like that, and we have to begin to
be able to distribute.
That's what killed Barry Gordy. That's what killed a whole lot.
That's right.
And we were getting 2 records for $1.
Yes.
Now you're only getting 99 cents. You're only getting 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they're back to vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yes.
So vinyl again.
Vinyl is coming back.
Right. So
Vinyl's
my
coming
point
back.
is, we had to, and what killed him was they were paying him 30, 60, 120 days late.
Yeah.
He had independent distributors, but they were paying him late.
Yeah.
You can't make any money like that. So we had to begin to think about how we
To
can
distribute.
now start all, get on, like you said, if we just start by region and distribute.
We actually, I actually honestly, in my opinion, I actually honestly believe we already have a distribution network. I think it's already there, and we don't really have to get 5, 25, 35 people together and say, let's distribute this product. Because guess what? Every individual has the ability to do that way faster than going to 25 folks and say, distribute my money. All they got to do is have one of these, one of those, one of these, and they simply got product, and you just got to know where to upload it at. So on that note, have you got one more question?
Just,
Yeah, I have a question.
Things up what you said.
Yes, sir.
That's been proven. The Nation of Islam with the Nation of Muhammad speech.
That's right.
The
Yep.
fish, the bean pie. The
Yep.
distribution system already in place. It was used and it was spread.
Right.
If we do the same thing,
That's all we are is a natural distribution.
Let me
There's
say,
a sister
let me
in
say
the
something.
nation
Let me
that's
say
a
something.
musician too. Neela, I'm sorry.
No, go
I was just gonna say real quick. There's a sister, a female rapper in the nation, Sister Neela. Awesome. Now, mainstream they don't listen to it. I listened to it. I saw, you know what I'm saying, her stuff on Instagram. I followed her, and I went to Apple Music to stream her music.
That's a distribution. So you have one last question?
Just briefly, I want to just put a couple of things. I traveled with a rapper before. I sang a little bit. I traveled with a rapper. Big rapper. I told him I couldn't go. He said, "No, man, we're going to keep you isolated. We understand. Come on." So we went up to the Carolinas. And we were talking in the car, you know. Carolina was a couple hours. And that's what he was telling me. He said, man, those DJs, you got to pay them $20,000 to play that record. They paying it enough. This is what he was telling me. He could have been bad information. He said, you can make a record that doesn't even make sense, like a lot of them do. He said, but they'll pay the DJ $20,000 to play the record and get them little kids to start to repeat it and it take off.
Like Old Town Road.
See, now maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was gullible. I didn't know that much. But I'm telling what he told
Well,
me.
absolutely. What you just said was what you just said is. Well, let me just say this here. What you just said about that. There's a definition for that in the game. It's called payola. But there is a problem with that circumstance of doing business with radio stations. There's a law against it. A natural law. There's a natural law. There's a natural law on the books.
You're right, though.
Well, like I said, there's a natural law on the books against that.
You're right.
There's a natural law on the books against that. But, sister, let me just finish explaining this. Okay. There's a natural law on the books against that type of activity. However, it is still being done, and it is still being perpetrated as though the only legitimate way to get your music on the radio.
The word is sponsorship.
Okay, so now, one of the things, like I said, I always talk to these different artists and youngsters. What I tell artists now when they come to me, I say, well, all you got to do is, do you have a product you want to advertise on the radio? That product, you go and you buy advertisement time. You buy that advertisement time. Now, you're not necessarily going to get the exact equivalent of the advertisement time you buy, but the radio station knows this is the definition we have to use to get money from you that would otherwise be considered payola, right? To advertise your product. So you may have bought advertisement time. You may have bought 6 hours of advertisement time. It may cost you $20,000, whatever. And those are minutes and seconds. All right. So your record may be 3 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right?
I want to give an example of something too.
Please do.
To show you this, I started my career at V103 here in Atlanta, and I got to know a lot of the artists and stuff, and a lot of the DJs. I'll use Greg Street for example. Greg Street he started out in Mississippi. He was in Houston, Atlanta, Dallas. He was in Houston. He went to work for a station called The Box. That year, they negotiated his salary to be about $21,000 a year. And everybody was looking at Greg Street like,
Lost your mind.
have you lost your mind? Why you let him play you like that? Greg Street pulled off probably one of the smartest moves ever with that. He worked it into his contract that he could sell the last hour of his show. Greg Street cleared $1 million.
I know he did. I know he did.
That's how you do it. It's
Yeah, that
all
makes
about seconds.
Yeah.
Seconds. Literally, you're buying. When you do an advertisement, you buy we have True detergent. You go and you buy an advertisement on radio. That ad may only cost $20 for 10-second spot, you know, but then when you multiply that $20 and you want 3 seconds times, you take that and you multiply it 3 minutes, you just did it 100 times.
Yeah.
So 20 times 100, now you're talking, you're getting up into the hundreds, the thousands. And then now you try to multiply that more, now you're getting into the thousands and the thousands. Before you know it, now you do that, multiply that. If you're in a Cumulus system or Radio One or you guys are
Davis, we're Davis Broadcast.
right. So any one of these conglomerate networks that has 20 or 40 radio stations across the country, you can now take that, they boilerplate it, and they just power it in like that. You can spend $1 million, $500,000, or they'll tell you they spent $500,000 in value without even blinking.
Yeah.
So that's how the game goes.
Everything has a price in advertising.
That's how the game goes. We probably went way off of the original
Well, you was
topic.
gonna say something.
Yes,
I forgot what
yeah,
it
go
was.
back to you.
I want to go back to something he said earlier about community. I'm listening to this conversation, and I know I'm supposed to be speaking, but I'm more so listening. This is technically the formation of a record company because everything here, everything needed to make an artist successful is here. The Nation of Islam is like the brother said, bean pies and fish. Like we know, if you know anybody Muslim or you grew up Muslim like I did, you just understand that's just part of our makeup. Now, the new music business is for the entrepreneurial mind. If you can't think about, if you're not thinking about how to own and how to control your content, the music business now is not for you. Because by the time you get to guys like him, he's not one of the guys that's going to tax you to play a record, but most of them do. By the time you get to that, you're going to need an investor if you don't have money. But here's what we do have as a community. Say there's a young, really talented artist here at the high school, right? And they really want to make it. It's brothers and sisters in here that have the understanding of how to structure business. Royal has put together record companies. I've seen him do it, production companies, record companies. Here's an idea. The iTunes charts. You guys all heard of iTunes, right? What if you were to pinpoint one artist here, just one, start with one, and go, the nation is going to support you, and we're going to make this work so that we can start to compete as an independent record company, whatever, Nation Music, whatever you want to call it, right?
I like that one.
Then you get that artist and you get him in the studio. Me, Raw, like people that know how to make music that are inside of the nation, right? Then you come up with a great body of work that can compete with what's out there.
Right.
It can be, to go back to your point, but it can be inspirational, but you don't want to make, even gospel records have conformed to what hip hop has done to everything. So make the music competitive, right? Then after you get that done, you go buy 10,000 iTunes gift cards for $1.
Yes.
Just after Juma, just brothers, sisters, everybody contribute $2 after Juma, right? Then you buy 10,000 iTunes gift cards. And then you have concerts for the artist, right? Here in the gym. The fee to get in is you have to buy the artist's single on the iTunes gift card. When you go and look that artist up on Tuesday,
It's going to be something.
it's going up the charts. That's when people like him have to go, who was little such and such Shabazz from Nation Records?
Yeah.
Because
Then-
when we see that
It's
bump,
not that. Nation Records.
Then you're competing. Then you use this brother's marketing understanding. Then you use his business sense. And you use these brothers' musical and everything that the nation has inside of it. You use it, and we don't have the narrative changes from how do we get into this thing and you become the thing.
Hey, Ak,
And then they come to us.
I'm going online now to secure Nation
That's what we need.
But we have, but could we say Nation's Record that we don't? I mean,
See, that's
Unless
the problem.
somebody owns it already.
See,
Well,
I'm
you
just
gotta
saying-
check
I'm
the
just-
name, but
yeah,
yeah.
stop
The
saying
basic,
it.
the basic thing we're generally missing
Mhm.
is somebody that will really take that initiative and do that.
No,
Is that what
no,
I'm trying
we're
to
not
say?
missing them.
I don't think it's missing.
We're doing it. We're doing it now. But we just did.
What we need.
We're having a conversation. This is a.
Don't
You can
misunderstand.
do it, anybody can do it if they have the right consultant.
Let me just say this
That's why
here.
I came at you and said, what is your name?
Let me just say this
That's all
here.
I asked.
Let me just say
What
this.
is your name?
Okay.
I
Okay.
can find out the rest.
Let me just say this to everybody here. Okay, one of the things that has driven me for 40 years was, even when I was out jumping up and down on stage all the time with Cool again. One of the things that has always driven me was owning a company or a corporation that could look like equally stand next to any of the majors when you look at it. When you see it, you see the art graphics looks like it can compete with Universal, it can compete with Sony. The musical content was at the same level as whoever their artist that they had. You have to make every aspect of your presentation be competitive with the majors. Now, obviously, sometimes independent labels or independent companies that go to put out music don't always meet that bar.
Yeah.
That's when you really have that extra support where the community has to get completely behind it to make it believable to a guy like him.
Right.
But to organize it and structure it, all you need is a couple people who are not arrogant, a couple people who understand what the objective is, a couple people who are willing to play ball, and folks who know exactly what
And work in unity.
what they're doing.
How many years have we needed that? That's the point. You see
I
what
think
I'm
we
saying?
have
We
needed.
needed it for 1,000 years, but
Yeah.
there's nobody that you really can pinpoint and say, let me go to him and he'll be able to facilitate this or that.
It's taking on that
I actually think there are. I actually disagree with the final conclusion of your point, although I see exactly what you're saying. We've been doing it a lot of
20
years.
years, we ain't got it.
But I believe that there's always a reason for something not being what it is. If it doesn't happen, there's always a reason. There's always, like I said, there's a Murphy's Law aspect, and there's always we used to talk. There's always the little rat that's in the corner that's going to mess up the stew if you let him. But there's also the propensity, the opportunity that if you got the right combination of personalities, right combination of information and people who are talented, you can do it. It has been done. There are people doing it right now. There are other Muslims that are doing things in the community and outside the community. It just seems to be sometimes egos get in the way. People who have more knowledge sometimes feel that people who have less knowledge need to listen to them, or the people who have less knowledge figure they got more money, and the old people who got more knowledge need to shut up and let them do it. It's just always something like that. But the point is that the concept of what he's saying is still a valid concept.
She said the word. It's responsibility.
Yeah.
I have to feel like I'm going to get it done if nobody does it. So I'm taking the responsibility. You see what I'm saying? And what is responsibility? The ability to respond. That's all it is. In other words, I'm going to respond. If 1,000 people come,
That's right.
or if nobody comes,
That's good.
I'm going to be
Well, we
there.
should start that movement. Let's get together and let's make it. We're 5 minutes past the time I'm supposed to be done, and he's got to go. I'm going to say the problem with me when people start giving me jobs. Let me just tell y'all something. When people start giving me jobs,
What's wrong with getting paid for what you do?
sister, I'm just saying straight up. When people start appointing me and giving me jobs, I do what my father used to tell me he did when he was in the Army. When the captain or the sergeant said, everybody want to volunteer for this mission, take 2 steps forward. My father would say, yes, sir. Take 2 steps backward. So you don't get it confused. I don't volunteer so quickly. I always step back and get a good look at what's really going on first before I put myself out. So on that note, I'm gonna end this. I am so thankful.
Thank you very much.
You guys stuck around. So happy. So very, very happy. So blessed. And on that note, we'll just say thank you, Brother George.
Thank you.
You always come through. Balewa, thank you so much. The camera, turn that camera off over there.
Any kind of station or something.
I was gonna give you a sneak preview of the new single, if you turn that off.